Giovanni de Verrazzano, a Florentine navigator who was sent by the French king to map the New World, discovered New York by mistake in 1524. A bridge was built by where he docked, and although misspelled, was named to commemorate his discovery, even though Verrazzano mistook the bay to be a lake and turned around before discovering Manhattan. While the history of New York begins with a mistake, it was built on the struggles and ambitions of monumental people. You need only take a small walking tour of 5 city blocks and you are transported along hundreds of years of people's history, observing as their accomplishments culminate in the architecture of New York. Where better to start this tour than with the location of New York's founding myth, Battery Park. It is believed that in 1626, Peter Minuit, the Dutch governor, bargained with a local tribe to buy Manhattan for $23 worth of beads. Not far from Battery Park is an area that is unique in the New York themes it presents and is located all within the Civic Center neighborhood. New York during the 18th century was not as accepting of peoples as it is today, nor was it isolated from the issue of slavery. With over 20% of the population of New York being slaves, tensions rose within the city that culminated in a rebellion. Trials were held that resulted in 30 people being burned and hung. In 1991, workers discovered their graves in what would turn out to be the African Burial Ground, a resting place of an estimated 15,000 people. The African Burial Ground is located near what used to be known as the Collect Pond. The Collect Pond was a large freshwater pond that covered the area of what is now Folly Squared and beyond. After the draining of the pond, it was filled with earth that resulted in some of the worst real estate in New York. Furthermore, the canal that was built to drain the pond is now better known as Canal Street, and you can experience the change in topography from high ground to the swampy low ground of the graveyard at Folly Square. Nearby this tragic area is a building that depicts a struggle of a different nature, the struggle of a growing city and a suffering economy. As the city was growing, government buildings became very crowded, and to alleviate this problem, plans for a new city hall were drafted. City Hall was built on a cow pasture, and in order to make the building affordable, it was made smaller, and the back of the city hall was not to have a facade. As you turn away from City Hall, you are struck with the realization that the New York we see today is the result of people solving problems due to the development of the city. As the residents faced the problem of a growing population and the lack of administrative space, by the early 19th century, New York was short on drinkable water. The aqueduct system that responded to this problem was opened in 1842, and the water's route culminated in the city's first fountain. The fountain that you observe today is actually a replacement ordered by William Tweed in order to make more money. New York is not only known as a financial capital, but as a fashion capital, and to jumpstart this development, Alexander T. Stewart opened the first store to sell items that were ready to wear, whereas, at the time, everything was tailor-made. Stewart displayed them store windows and created a fixed price for his items using price tag. He also followed the market so that he may be more price competitive and opened the first store to be built out of marble. Near Stewart's Marble Palace, as the department store came to be known, stands a monument that honors Horace Greeley, the owner of the New York Tribune, which was a progressive paper. Greeley was monumental in pushing for the Civil War free soil and the migration of peoples from the city to the west, as well as laying foundations for the Republican Party. He went so far as running for president. One of Greeley's competitors, the New York Times, only gained their renown when they helped put William Tweed in jail. Although remembered as a crook, William Boss Tweed had a huge impact upon New York City. Tweed and his friends came to be known as the Tweed Ring, and throughout their role stole millions of dollars from the city. For example, an estimated $14 million was paid to build the New York County Courthouse, currently known as the Tweed Courthouse. However, only $4 million ended up being invested in the building, whilst the remainder of the money was pocketed by the Tweed Ring. However, Tweed's corruption very often blinds people to his contribution. For example, Tweed commissioned street paving, sewer laying, parts of Central Park, funding for the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and the American Museum of Natural History. Potentially one of his most important contributions was facilitation of building the Brooklyn Bridge. During the 19th century, the public were fearful of the bridge, and so it was engineered to be stronger than necessary. This paid off because the supplier of the bridge ropes was reusing failed inspection wires. However, the robust construction of the bridge allowed for them to proceed with a subpar bridge rope. The bridge opened on May 24, 1883, and was the longest suspension bridge and the first bridge over the East River that connected Manhattan with Brooklyn and eventually led to the unification of the 5 boroughs. As Tweed began to lose his control over New York City, Andrew Haswell Green stepped in to take his place. Green has been credited with the unification of the 5 boroughs to New York City and has pushed for a unified New York throughout the 1800s. He has unofficially been remembered through the city's Hall of Records, also known as the Surrogates Court. Even though the city via Green didn't spend money on rebuilding City Hall, there was one person who didn't mind spending their wealth on architecture, and that was Frank W. Woolworth. Woolworth was a retailer that gained fame through his dime stores and merchandise on display. His company had decided to build their corporate headquarters, and Woolworth paid over $13 million for the Woolworth building, which since its opening in 1913 was the tallest building in the world until the Chrysler building took the title in 1930. The opening was as grand as its nickname of Cathedral of Commerce, for it opened when President Woodrow Wilson turned all the lights on in the building with the press of a button in the White House. Today, postcards carry a different image, a building that tourists constantly flock to and one that carries the weight of New York City. With views of the Statue of Liberty in New York City from the East River, it is no wonder that the Brooklyn Bridge is frequented by over 100,000 people daily. The bridge is used as a way to exercise, a way to tour, a way to work, and a way to unify the city.